All right, so we've done pentatonic, we've done pentatonic expansions, we've looked at the blues scale, right, adding in that blues note. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually look at the major scale. Now I'm going to show you how it looks on the guitar, and of course, I want you to understand there's all kinds of theory behind these things that we're not going to get into, but I do want you to start building it out on your fretboard and start memorizing things, and we are going to be talking about it and how to use it in the context of our solos. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to build out a scale, the major scale, in the key of G. We're going to shift keys now, and we're going to be in the key of G. Now, the major scale is the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale. So it's going to sound like this. Now, as you play that scale, there's lots of different ways that you can play it, because again, we have 6 strings and everything's, notes overlap and things, so you may have played the major scale like this before. And there's nothing wrong with playing it that way, but when you study with me, I try and get people to move into what we call spread fingerings, which is playing 3 notes on each string. And part of the reason is because of the symmetry that happens. Remember, a while ago we talked about how when things are symmetrical, oftentimes they're easier to memorize. They're easier to remember. And with this spread fingering, with putting 3 notes on each string, it tends to become a bit more symmetrical. And because you have a consistent 3 notes on every string, if you do decide you want to get into more speed picking and that sort of playing, it lends itself really great for that, because you're not sometimes playing 2 notes on a string and then sometimes you're playing 3 notes. It's just a consistent 3 notes on every string. So there's a lot of benefits to learning how to play at 3 notes per string, and that's just the way that over the years I've come to teach it. I've taught it many ways, but this is just the most efficient in the long run. So what we're doing is we're playing 3 notes on each string going. Now, that's the octave. So we can hear do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But we're not done. Of course, we're only halfway through the guitar and we've got another octave to go. And then we actually have 1 string left. And then we run out of strings. So it's going to look like this. Visually, you've got 2 spread fingerings. Then you're going to play 4, 5, 7 twice. And then 5, 7, 8 twice. And again, always know where your roots are. Know that this is G, and this is G, and this is G. Always be aware of where those roots are, where the octaves are, so as you're playing, you can find those roots whenever you need them. So, all right, so that's the first position, if you will, of the G major diatonic scale, or the official G major scale, okay? It's movable anywhere you want. So just like the pentatonic, the diatonic are going to have connections as well. Positions that connect together in the same way the pentatonic did, only they're going to look different. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to run through all those positions. If you need them, you don't have to sit and watch me play all of these, but if you do need them and you need to study them, or you're at the place and you're playing where it's time to do that, they're going to be here for you. If you're not, don't worry about it, okay? You can come back to it anytime. So let's take a look at the other positions. Okay, so second position. Third position. Fourth position. Fifth position. Sixth position. And seventh position. Now, when it comes to the major scale, there are 7 positions instead of 5 because there are 7 notes. In the pentatonic, you only had 5, so you built those 5 notes out. On the 6th string, as I was just kind of trying to demonstrate, you can see how the 7 notes would go onto the 6th string and we would build down from there, okay? So again, there's a lot more, they seem a lot more involved because the patterns are vastly different from each other, but they still connect together. You're not playing any new notes, just like pentatonic. You're playing the same 7 notes over and over and over, but it takes a while to get comfortable with seeing these. So if you're moving into the diatonic world, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do world here, and you're trying to learn to solo, you're going to use all the same tools we've been talking about this entire time with creative elements and the big 5 and all of those things, but you're trying to see them with more notes on there. And this is why I always like to start with pentatonic, because if you can learn to visualize your pentatonic scale underneath your diatonic scale, it makes it a little bit easier because you can visualize your pentatonic as an expansion like we talked about versus just 2 absolutely different worlds of scales. Pentatonic is its own thing and diatonic is its own thing, and they never relate. We want to see that relationship. Okay, it's really important for us to get used to that. So when I play, what I do is I try and find pentatonic positions underneath those diatonic positions. So let's say I was playing in, well, before we go into that, let me first explain this to you. We learned how there was a relative major and minor in pentatonic, and you just had to move down 3 frets to get to the diatonic. Let me re-say that. When we were in pentatonic and you wanted to get to the major, you moved down 3 frets and you were in major pentatonic. Okay? Diatonic does not work that way. Diatonic is a different kind of beast. So if you want to play in minor, you have to understand that you're already in minor. You just have to know which is the relative minor. So if you think about it this way, there's a lot of ways you can look at this. But if you think about it this way, if I was in G major and I go to my 6th note, which is E, that's my relative minor. So G major and E minor are the same scale. They use the same chords, they use the same notes. They function differently when you're soloing. Of course, again, if your song is based off G major, you might be trying to target something with G major, which we're going to talk about. If it's in E minor, you might try and target something with E minor. But the construct is exactly the same, okay? Which really, pentatonic, if you think about it, if you were in A major and F sharp minor, they're the same too, right? Remember we talked about that if you watch the pentatonic stuff? So don't let it get confusing. You've got to wrap your brain around that. So if you wanted A minor pentatonic, it's here. If you wanted A major pentatonic, you got to move down. But if you wanted A minor pentatonic, it's here, and so is C major pentatonic. They are the same thing. Well, in diatonic, it works the same way. If you're in G major, you're also in a relative minor. But if you need to know which minor it is, you don't know off the top of your head, you can go to that 6th note where the pinky is, and that will tell you. And you can say, oh, okay, so this song, Enter Sandman by Metallica, is in E minor. So I need a solo in E minor. Well, do I know an E minor scale? And the answer is yes. If you know your G major scale, you're in E minor at the same time. Okay? So those are the positions of the major scale, the kind of twisted logic of trying to find the relative minor. And what we're going to do is we're going to start trying to use all of these things, again, in another real world approach using diatonics and pentatonics and everything else that we've got. So